Welcome to Mama's Casserole, the podcast where business meets a little bit of everything. I'm your host, Zach Romero, serving up a hearty mix of insights, stories, and surprises. From strategies to grow your hustle to the latest tech trends, current events, and even a dash of conspiracy theories. There's always something bubbling in the oven. So grab a plate, pull up a chair, and dig into Mama's Casserole. Let's dish it out together. Welcome back to Mama's Casserole. Today we have an incredible guest joining us. Someone who knows firsthand what it takes to build, scale, and successfully exit a business. Michael Whittaker has spent the last 20 years owning and operating multiple businesses, and in 2023 he sold one of them for a 7-figure deal. Now he's on a mission to help contractors not only grow their businesses, but truly understand them, adjusting their goals to align with what they actually want in life. But success doesn't come without challenges. Through years of grinding and an always-on schedule, Michael has faced burnout head-on, and today he's here to share his powerful insights on recognizing, preventing, and overcoming burnout, so you can build a business that works for you, not just one that works you to the ground. Michael, welcome to the show.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Lita.
Yeah, no problem. So I've not known you a long time, but I did meet you recently in person there in Dallas. Your coaching and consulting business had a workshop, and I was privileged to be able to be there. And so I did get to hear a little bit about this topic, and this kind of puts you at the top of my list of someone I wanted to talk to, and I appreciate you taking some time out of your day. I really do appreciate you taking this time and sharing your story with us. You know, I tend to be old school, even though I'm a little younger. And some of these topics that we deal with tends to get into mindset and mental health and how we deal with things as men and as humans. And for me growing up, it's usually a topic you don't really talk about. You just kind of deal with things on your own. You know, it's not a huggy, touchy-feely type of environment that I came out of, but that's not what this is about. It's about being open and honest and admitting you need help. And I do really think that's important. Because at the end of the day, we are dads, we're husbands, we're family men, and that's why we have our businesses. So I really want you to be able to direct this conversation and tell us your story. I did introduce you in the introduction, but that really kind of just sums up what probably drove you towards some of the burnout. So let's quickly go through your journey as an entrepreneur over the last 20 years.
So, yeah, I think you got to start at the beginning to understand how I got here. And when I graduated college in 2007, wasn't really too aware that the whole economy was going to blow up. I owned a bunch of homes at the time. I was a loan officer. Probably the worst to have both of those. Luckily, in the Dallas-Fort Worth market, we're pretty protected on the downswings, but not for a guy that was graduating, going out on their own. So I started a lawn care business by really no intentions. It was just the only thing I could get into, easy access. I was cutting a lot of grass, physically doing the work, and honestly really enjoying it. My brother came down. Everyone knows him in the fencing world as Mr. Purple. And we grew our landscape business with zero bumpers, zero target in mind. And we just started installing a lot of outdoor products, fencing, outdoor construction. And we decided to make 2 different companies. That's probably where we made our first big mistake, was we didn't have company 1 dialed in. So we were like, let's start a whole nother company. So we're running crazy. The economy's rebounded, so we're thinking we've got it all figured out, but we're not managing our relationship. We're not managing staff, growth, cash the way that we were supposed to. So essentially we were running free, open, wide open, gas wide open. And so as we were navigating the next 10 years and putting a lot of revenue through the bank, we were just outworking our dumb a lot of the time, is what I like to say. And finally, that kind of caught up. And where it first broke down was in our relationship. And so for the viewers that don't know, he's my twin brother, 10 minutes apart. I have other siblings, and the relationship you have with the twin is way different than anybody could ever imagine if you're not in my shoes. And so our relationship broke down. We split the companies. It was pretty painful for everybody. We were very big on, well, you don't understand, it's me, when we should have been focused on repairing the damage of all the people around us. And so the split, even though it was terrible, it forced us to take accountability for our businesses, for our behavior, for our actions. And that's when I really truly believe that I started seeing everything with both eyes, Zach. I mean, so I had a pretty good dip in the entrepreneur world. Have for the last 21 years have written my own checks on the front, not on the back. And it's been wild, but it was about 2020, right when COVID had happened, that Robert and I split. And it, like I said, it forced us to take accountability, be aware, and quit blaming our circumstances on our relationship. So from there, we both grew the companies side by side. They went up pretty close to the 16 million mark, which comes with a lot of pressure. What I didn't realize was I built something I just did not want. Love the people, love my customers, but I'm not a guy that wants to run an $8 million company, no matter how well oiled it is. I was missing parts. I was walking past opportunities that I absolutely wanted to be involved in, and it would get me frustrated. So the quick speed up version, and then we can get into the mechanics of burnout, was I woke up one day, got a phone call from a friend who sold a business. I said, oh my God, it's possible. Businesses really do sell. I'd almost argue that they sell as quickly or more than even houses do. I was unaware of this whole world of business transactions of businesses. And I spent 12 months putting the business up for sale. Once again, I never once was like, hey, I'm going to plan for this exit. I was like, I'm selling. I'm done, Zach. I'm out. And so my wife and I, we prepared the business over those 12 months, kept it a secret from everybody, which I would do that differently as well. And I sold it. And I had a really hard time during that exit. I was very emotional. The only thing, I get emotional even saying that, the only thing that really saved me was I kept a journal for, the transition was 90 days. And so every day I'd write a log into it, but that 90 turned into 180. And during that transition, I really realized how much of my frustration of the business was actually just some false fear created in my head. And then after I exited that, bought another business, started a couple of other businesses, I was really able to look at my entire situation, my last 21 years of being an entrepreneur, and figuring out how to avoid ever getting there again, because I should never have sold the business. And so I created this topic about burnout because that's extremely important, because I don't want anybody to do anything rash. But specifically what you talked about, as men specifically, we walk around with this armor on and we think we're way tougher than we really are. And then I believe we also have so much of that filter effect where you don't know what's true and what's not true. And I said, you know what? What if I just tell everybody what I went through? I don't care how people judge me. I went through it, and see if it touches somebody and gives someone a little bit of comfort. Give somebody the ability to say, you know what? This isn't a weird feeling. I'm not alone on this island. And so through this journey of creating this topic that should be in front of everybody, not only as business owners, but as husbands, wives, parents, friends, I completely believe that this should be something that you constantly keep up with as far as maintenance is concerned. And I think that's why we have so much mental health going on right now. You have so much access to information, false information, fake information, guys that that appear to be doing well that aren't. And I think if we're just a little bit more honest with each other, I think the world would honestly probably be a little bit peaceful place. So I've had a lot of people reach out to me and tell me that my story resonated with them. And so therefore, I know it's a serious problem going on. And once again, it's not just with business, Zach. I mean, I share this a lot. My family is transitioning through the teenage stage, and I'm experiencing burnout as a father, And so that's how I landed on the topic. I was like, I'm going to go to Defense Tech. I've got a speaking position. I'm going to rattle the freaking speaking train. And everyone's going to be like, oh my God, what is this weird topic we're talking about? I hope that I touch somebody by the time I leave, somebody that really needed to hear that conversation.
Absolutely. What you're saying is not always just business either. I went through a time as well. And of course, it was tied to work and business, but I noticed it affecting my family. And that is why I'm in business. It's for my family. It's why I push myself, why I do what I do. it is for my family, but there's that fine line or that double-edged sword of using it as a crutch to justify why I'm not there or to do this or to do that. But I came to a point where I was asking myself if I was getting burnt out or am I burning my family out? And I do self-fencing for Blackline, but my background is aerospace. I even started going back and working for Airbus, traveling the world, performing inspections, coming home, building fences, and even selling bicycle racks for a manufacturer out of England. Because in my mind, it was all about, hey, I'm going to do this great thing for my family. But, my kids were starting to get to that age where they needed some time from me. My wife, even made a comment to me like, I appreciate what you're doing. And that made me really evaluate where I was at. And so I have been through it, but I wasn't ever really able to put it to the words of what that situation was, and I didn't feel like I was burnt out working. I didn't tie it to burnout, so I get what you're saying. I love some of the things that you mentioned because it can be a topic that's hard to do and touch on because it's about our mindset and what we're going to share with someone. But I like the fact that you said, hey, I've been through it. I got to share it. Right? Because somebody is going through it and they can judge what they want, but I've already been through it and nothing's going to change anything at this point. And so before we get into the mechanics of burnout, I got a quick question for you. So how do you think the contractor industry has evolved over the years when it comes to selling businesses? Do you think that most guys go into it with the intention to actually sell it?
No, that's a really great question. I have a really great quote for you. If anybody gets to see me speak or work with me or even just become friends with me, know that I learn really well through quotes and proverbs, stuff that it just really cuts through me. And I think when most people start businesses, most of the time it's for the wrong reasons. And I had a business coach tell me one time, he said, businesses only do three things. It dies, you die, or it sells. Now, you can add a fourth one in there, pass it down to a child, but really that should sell to your child. No child should inherit. Most second generation businesses do really well or do really bad because of just typically like, hey, I didn't have to earn this. I didn't have to grind it out. I don't know what it feels like. And then you've actually created a way worse situation for this person down the road. But I really like that. I mean, I think that most business owners or most people start businesses for some sort of freedom. And so I think you can't have it all. Financial freedom, personal freedom, or just your schedule freedom when it comes to your work life. And I don't find that you get to have that combination all with owning business. So you're sacrificing something. So for me, I believe that truly if you own a business, it's going to live in your head 7 days a week. There's nothing you can do about it. Some people might lie, but I think the truth is we love building things and making progress. And so we're constantly working through how does that work. My old business coach said, owners should not take showers because it's one of the places where we generate most of our crazy ideas.
Love it.
And every time I take a shower and I think about what's going through my head, I always think about my coach. I'm like, yeah, he's so right. But I think if you know what you're aiming for when you start, you might set it up a lot differently. And so with me, I wanted to make a bunch of cash. Didn't care about the whole boss tell me this, boss tell me that. But when I started making a bunch of cash, I realized I'd given up so much of my freedom. And what I wish I would have done was I wish I would have started a business that allowed me to choose what days and what hours I was going to work. And so I think that a lot of businesses are going through the life cycle. To get back to your question, a lot of businesses are going through the life cycle of selling because people are either burned out or what do I do with this asset? I've worked on it. What do I do? Baby boomers are starting to exit the workplace and they have all their money and all their time and everything tied up in this asset. And what do I do with this asset? And some are worth more than others and some are worth nothing. And so I think that's scary on both spectrums, but transactions happen all the time. And I know people who build businesses and sell them every couple of years, and that's a great way to make an income. They don't make any money. A couple of years, they're just building the foundation, and they're getting paid on the exit. If you take what I sold the business for and you divide it out over the number of years that I owned it, it's not very much money per year. And I think that's one thing you should be considering when you're building a business is, are you making money today or are you making money on the exit? Are we using our cash flow now to buy assets that we can sit and not produce income on? Just call it real estate. And we're on the backside, we're actually going to get paid here. And so I think that's why I think people enter businesses for all the wrong reasons is you don't gain a ton of freedom. Sometimes it's just a really wicked way to make $150,000 per year. Right, it's just a lot different. Yeah, I know you can relate to.
Yeah, and that 150 doesn't go as far as it used to either.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. And so I personally, all of my businesses now, I want several businesses under the $1 million mark. I also think that they're easier to exit and also transition over to somebody.
So do you keep under that amount because it's more enjoyable or just easier to operate in general for you?
Yeah, I think it's more elastic. And so I have, when you're running an $8 million company, the business doesn't care. When it needs your attention, it's going to take your attention. I can put some of my other businesses on pause for a day or two, even a week at a time. I've got a business out the coast right now, and I have not seen it bid on property in over 100 days. It's something I was really working towards, letting the people I put in charge manage it. I have the least amount of information. I don't live down there, and so I've got to trust the people. So it's been a really big learning curve because I wanted to get in there and get my hands in it. But it's being under $1 million, the mistakes are more forgivable.
Right.
And I just think that diversifying is a great idea because there's a lot of things that I'm doing now that I really enjoy. Now, trust me, I miss what I had. But I would have never been in the RV business or the propane business or storage business if I didn't have the bandwidth to think about it. So perfect world, obviously you want a semi-passive income.
Yeah, I'm always interested in how to create passive income. But as you said, it is hard for everyone to completely unplug from something, and probably why you call it semi-passive. If you actually listen back to my last episode, we touched on that with a guest about passive income and having multiple businesses as well. But I do want to start getting into the nuts and bolts of burnout. So I want to shift gears back to that a bit. All right, so we talked about the misconceptions of what people think about what's going on. So how did you personally feel like you recovered from burnout? Was it changes in your life itself or within your business or even just a mix of both?
Great question. I think the really quick one I want to answer directly so everyone hears it is it's continued maintenance on myself. And so there is no recovery. So I truly believe in this topic. So I've spent more time on it than I normally would anything. And so unlike a car, your fuel tank goes down to E, you can still get the same place the same way as long as you're within inside those miles, right? But with a human, the closer you get to E, the less you have to give. And so the whole goal is to not go below a certain point. And I think that requires maintenance. And so for me in my recovery, this is what I do. I can definitely feel when I'm not feeling great. I feel like I'm kind of burning out. I feel like I've just got a heavy bag I'm carrying. And so I'll take a time out, and I don't feel bad about that time out. That's something that I need. Sure, there's days where there's no way you can step away, but shoot, even this morning, I said, you know what? I'm going to spend an extra hour on myself this morning, and normally I would have felt really guilty about that. And I said, I need this hour. I don't know particularly why. I don't know if yesterday was just a heavy bag to carry, but this hour this morning was all I needed to kind of put me back into the position I needed. So I also do a lot of other simple things. Exercise. That's probably the most neglected thing. Being in my 40s, 40, I'm doing exercise to make myself feel better, not look better anymore. And I think that even if you can just get outside and do a simple walk, you've got a lot of different de-stressors out there that can help with it. I think being, totally honest with yourself about what your capacity is. So I know that I really only like working 60 hours a week. That's it. So I've got to figure out a way to shut it off at 60. Don't mind working all 60 of those. But once again, past 60, I really don't enjoy it. I love working on work when I'm on vacation just a little bit in the morning so I don't come back to a big disaster. So before I would kind of fight that and be frustrated and be mad at the business because it's inside my head. I'd come back, I'd be already going through the anxiety. So I say, hey, well, how do I make this all work for me? I said, well, no one's up at 8 o'clock in the morning on vacation. Why don't I just give myself an hour and a half to do what I need to do and then shut it off and be present for what I want? Me personally, I take mini vacations. I do a lot of it by myself. I think people, sometimes they try to busy up their life, busy up their situation, and all they've done is add a lot more noise and a lot more stimulation when you really should be using that time to decompress. I found a hobby. I think a lot of people work too much because that is their hobby, and they don't know what to do with their time otherwise. And so I built a chart. My brother came up with it. It's called Profit First for Your Life. And it's the same concept as Profit First, where you take the profits and you put them in really important buckets, and then you see how much is left over. Me, I really try to protect the time that I've put in my buckets. So I put my time profit into these buckets: families, friends, new ventures, old ventures, businesses. And I just really try to protect that time that's there. It doesn't always work, but if I say, hey, you know what, I'm going to go fishing this week for these 3 days, so the 2 weeks leading up to it's going to kind of stink because I'm going to be fully time out during those 3 days, I don't feel bad about it. You shouldn't feel bad about it, but it's a constant recognition of what you need. Is truly the answer to that, Zach, is maintenance. And I've also noticed too, my eating and drinking habits have a huge impact. So if I'm not doing very well, I'll be honest, I normally would always love to go grab a beer, grab some wings. And honestly, none of that stuff long-term makes you feel very good. So I really try to be more conscious and try to let my emotions sizzle down before I make any decisions. So
Yeah, that's good because, everybody has to have that unwind time. And I'm the same way. I used to really get upset, like, man, like I just can't unplug on vacation. And it would really stress me out because in my mind, I'm not having a vacation. But I did find that, like, if I took an hour in the morning or just answered emails or did something like that, it really didn't take that much time. And I'm a morning person. A lot of the family's not up that early anyways. And it just took that much more stress out of my day when I got back home from vacation. So we all know what it's like. You almost feel like sometimes you got to take a vacation after the vacation.
I think so. Like, I put a buffer day before I come back. Like, I really need that day to decompress. But you know where I stole that idea that it was okay to do it? I met the lead attorney for Dave & Buster's, and Dave & Buster's has bought Main Event. So now they're a really big conglomerate. And so at any given moment, they have one lawsuit in all 52 states in the United States. And he wakes up, guy loves himself some beer. I know because we drank quite a few at the pool, but he is disciplined. He wakes up at 6 a.m. and he works from 6 to 8 when everyone else is asleep. And then he's 100%, fun Fred the rest of the day. And I said, you know what? I think that's great. This guy knows what his responsibility is. It doesn't interrupt anybody else's time. Sure, we'd all love to sleep in just a little bit more, but does it add more value, to just go ahead and do that little bit of work? Tell your family what the plan is. Hey, it's not going to take anything away from this trip. I said, hey, this is a high-powered guy. This is somebody that's been in the business for a long time. And I couldn't imagine being at war in 52 different states. So to compare my stress versus his, I just felt like it was a very fair way to operate.
Yeah, and I look at it too as kind of the trade-off for the benefits of what we get, for what we do. But to be able to do what we can do and take that vacation, hey, let's be honest, not everybody gets to do that. That's my trade-off. Because I still got to put in those moments that somebody else might not be willing to or can't. And I look at that as a blessing because I can still make money when I'm on vacation. It's paying for that trip that we're on. And it doesn't hurt anything, because I am an early riser, as I said earlier. And that's kind of the daily routine anyways. So that's how I've come to terms with that as well. It doesn't take away from the family because when it is time to go with the family, we go.
Yeah, and I think that's really just coming back to the whole deal about being honest with yourself. If you want to do it, then do it. and say, okay, this is my boundaries, and tell everyone what it is, and make sure it aligns with the whole whoever you're with. But when it's family time, or whether it's friend time or golf time or, business time, you're just present for what you're supposed to be present for the most that you can. And so I know, like you, if we're not checking that email once a day, we're probably not mentally fully there, because we're thinking, what are we missing? But don't miss much if you check in for an hour. We're not that important in our businesses.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd like to believe it. That was another problem. I felt like I had to be there all the time, Zach. I had to be the guy answering the phone. I had to be the guy that worked late. I had to be everything. When I was so fearful when we sold, because I was like, well, they're going to fail because I'm not going to be there. And I told you this when you were down in Fort Worth. I mean, they had no business experience whatsoever. Smart ladies, hard workers. There's no doubt in my mind. I can't argue with that. But the business looks a lot different, but they are still operating today. And so all of those times I just felt like I had to be there. And I chose my decisions or how I divide my time. I think I've really figured out that it's okay. It will still survive. So you asked about my new businesses, why I don't go down to the RV park as often, is because I know my impact is the visionary, and my impact is not just pounding pavement every single day and all that. It's just made up behavior that I'm doing. It's not the business asking for it. It's not the position. Same thing, think with parents, right? Like iPhones, track your iPhones and just watching your kids. So we went through that habit with our kid turning, driving, and we were making ourselves sick. It's like, man, nobody asked us to do that. And so we kind of unplugged from that. So I think we just create all these bad behaviors, in my personal opinion, and then it gets inside your head, and then you just become negative Ned all the time.
I have a couple more quick questions before I have you give your closing thoughts. So what advice do you have for business owners who feel like they're constantly working, like we've been talking about, but actually never getting ahead? What is something they can put in their life or even in their business?
Oh, God, that's $1 million question. I think a lot of the drowning that people feel is self-made up. It's the fear of failure. That's my personal opinion. I think there's a time where you just got to grind and you got to put in the hours. It's just got to get done. And then I think there's a lot of the false extra work that's being put in when it could be delegated, but you think typically, I could do it better. I could do it faster. I could do it different. So you just absorb it. I also believe that people and this is for business, they don't know how much money they actually want to make. They just want to make a ton of it. I can tell you that every stage of making money has a different set of problems. And so for me, when I coach my guys, I'm trying to figure out what's important to them. And that changes with the season of life. So if your children are at a stage where they want to hang out with you and they're young and they're influenceable by you, then it might be less important to make money, but more time with them. But when they're teenagers, you might want to pour back into that career while they're just burning a bunch of time with their friends. Heck, we have honestly need to be more distracted with teenagers. So we've had to busy our minds. It's funny. Our children definitely were part of our weekends, and now they're gone, and we're like, oh God, what do we do with all the time? Or
Yep.
oh, maybe they. So I don't know. I don't think I have a great answer for it. I think that a lot of that drowning in water is self-made up. I can promise you right now, if you can't leave your business for at least a couple of days without feeling that feeling inside your gut of like something is going to happen, then you are in a bad spot. You need to go ahead and take a step back and work on one of the 50 different recovery items that you can do, because you should be able to step away and nothing burn down. Your customers should be able to respect that time. Your employees should want you to recharge. You should want to do it for everybody around you. So,
Well, I was trying to lead you a little bit with that question, because honestly, I believe one of the biggest things somebody can do who just feels like, man, I don't know what to do, is obviously you guys coach and consult. And my last guest brought up this exact thing, he had to find somebody to be accountable to, find a coach. And he actually has multiple coaches. I was hoping you might plug your guys, what you guys do, but,
I'm not very pluggy.
it don't have to be you specifically, but you know what I'm saying. It's the concept. you got to find somebody to help you.
You do, man. You have to have a battle buddy, especially in this world. This world's fierce. I'm very, very nervous for our children because I think that it's going to be even a meaner world. But yes, we have a coaching and consulting company, and there's a very big difference between coaching and consulting. Coaching, we're trying to walk the path with you and try to help you really think through your emotions, think through your decisions, think through your strategy, and then we want to hold you accountable. Consultants just come in and tell you what to do, and then they leave, and you're like, well, shoot, I knew I needed to fix all that. Well, thanks for pointing it out. And now you've given me more anxiety because you're a part of my business. But I think a good place to start, no matter what, is have a mentor that's walked around that corner that can tell you it's not that important, or say, hey, this is really important. You need to be spending energy on it. So I have several different mentors that I've had in my life. And one of my favorite things I was ever told, and I said this quote to somebody today, my attorney said, Michael, you worry a lot. I know, but you don't understand. And I'm like, he's like, no, I did. He said, listen, let me tell you this, Mike. He said, whatever you can change, you should worry about. And whatever you can't change, do not worry about. And I started really thinking about that. And I said, man, God Almighty, I don't worry about the things that I should worry about. I would literally worry about everything that I cannot change. And I think a lot of that's going on right now with the switch in presidency and tariffs, and everybody's freaking out about what ifs. And it's like, man, that's just shouldn't be living in your head. None of that should. Can't control it. And so we call that, your head should be a toll booth, not a parking lot for that kind of stuff. And so I do think that's super important. A bodybuilder is going to have a coach. Maybe multiple dietitian, all that. And it's not because he doesn't know how to work out, it's because they're there to help him through the ebbs and flows of life and training and making sure we don't get under our side of our own heads too far. So it's pretty easy to get there, especially when you're on social media and you see other people. And going back to what we talked about, I mean, there's a lot of false information out there, and you look at it and you're like, man, I'm not doing well. Then you see behind the curtains, you're like, holy cow, I'm doing 10,000 times better than that person.
Yeah.
And you want to lend a hand, but at the same time, you're like, well, why are they giving false information? That's the way I feel. I just get so frustrated when people put on that filter, it's just, it's unfair.
No, it's not reality. It's a false reality and false expectations that, nobody can meet. Kind of going back to that then, one of my questions was going to be, what would be one of the investments, whether time, money, or education, that you could put into a new business? So looking back, is coaching and consulting or getting a mentor, would that now rank a lot higher than you ever thought it would be?
Yeah, if I would have I think I found my coach at the right time. Robert and I outworked our dumb. So it was really difficult for anybody to hold us accountable because we truly outworked our dumb. And we made a lot of mistakes, but we made a lot of progress. So when you looked at our scorecard, it always read positive. So that was our justification of why we did things, why we were irresponsible at times. But I met this guy and I heard him perfectly all 18 months that I was with him. And he just really made me think about everything I was saying and made me think about the man that I wanted to be, and made sure that what I said, what I did, and what I believed all aligned. So I think coaching is really important. You can take that in your personal life or business life, but I think a lot of people can't afford coaches. And so currently, I know this isn't a fence industry podcast, but I think in some industry, there's a lot of vulture coaches out there that are just going for guys that don't have capital to do it, or people that are shoving ideas down them, when in reality, these people need battle buddies. They need mentors. And I think I would always start there. Everyone should have someone in their network to lean on. And then outside that, once then it starts to become a professional relationship, when you hire somebody, and there's a whole different level of accountability. We spend a lot of time in resources that do cost money. We travel to people and people travel to us, and it's a real gig. But one of my favorite guys that I coach, and they're all my favorites, he has several other mentors, and they have different purposes in his life. And so I think that a mentor is somebody that is going to be honest with you, that you can typically look up to, that you can surround yourself with. I think a coach, a business coach, is somebody that is constantly pushing you to make progress. And then I think in consultant, it's got its place as well, but you have to be really careful. My interpretation of consultants is you don't understand the data or you don't understand what's next, but you have the capacity to do what they tell you to.
No, in these last few years, being in these fence groups and in this industry, coaching and mentors has been a big subject. And I've never not agreed with it, but when I went to your guys' facility here a month or so ago to your workshop, the camaraderie that I saw in that group showed me how important the coaching side is. And finding that camaraderie I saw was amazing. And that spoke volumes to me of, like, hey, let's all get better together. And so, yeah, I really enjoyed that part of it.
I appreciate it. Robert's done a really great job. He absolutely pours into that. He pushes me on my limits. We just were out there at Mount Warner's. Once again, this is an defense industry. Mount Warner is a leader in our industry. And I was telling him on his Monday evening with Matt that I would have been terrified. I wouldn't have gone out there. And so I think that just once again being accountable, you've got these peers that are pushing you to be better. And Matt's not like, hey, are you coming out here? He said, hey, this is when you're coming out here.
Yeah, right.
And I gained so much value just being around him. And so once again, my circle of friends have changed. The people that talk about burnout and all that, I want friends to call me out and say, hey, you're not doing what you say you want to do. Your goals don't align with your behavior. And I don't see that a lot with friends, and being honest, either we're living too nice, we don't want to piss anybody off. But I want you, Zach, to be like, hey, Mike, I haven't seen any progress in your life. What's going on, Mike? Do I need to fly down there? What can I do to help out? Yeah, I'm just in a bumpy road, man. I can't get past this hurdle. I want you to be like, all right, well, let's dissect that. And so once again, I think everyone has different values to your life, but I really struggle with people that don't want to constantly make progress and then hold me accountable. And it's hard. It's a hard pill to eat. But man, my coach, sorry, I can go all day. Right. My coach, I remember he told me, he said, you're acting like a boy. I was like, no, I'm not. So yeah, I am. And I was, and it was just so embarrassing sitting there. And it's like all my actions screamed I was still a boy. Everything I did in my business was great, but all my other actions weren't. And so that was really my turning point too, of being self-aware. Okay, I've got to make some changes. So when I got burned out, I realized, okay, I've been self-aware before. I've been disciplined before. I've proven I can do it. Now I know what needs to happen. Let's make a change because this sucks. This is terrible.
Well, that's a good segue for us to wrap up as we are up against some time crunch here. So what are some closing thoughts you might have on this topic, or even intertwine what your goals are now with what you're doing?
Yeah. So what I'm doing, Zach, I'm building businesses that are semi-passive. They require me to be the visionary. I do like to be hands-on with my men in my companies. I really enjoy it. That's where I found out that I really enjoy. So I'm constantly reevaluating about every year about where I'm enjoying spending my time and just really trying to put my time there. I know I got to work. We all got to work. I enjoy working. My goal with burnout, though, is I really, truly, I believe in this topic so much, and hopefully I don't get burned out talking about it. But I just really, really hope that people are being more honest with each other about the struggles of life. There's a lot going on in society, and we live in a pretty ugly world, in my opinion. And so I think we could all just be more honest with each other, and it would clear a lot of stuff up. And then I think we'd be able to then start working on the problems quicker because you're not hiding them as much.
Yeah, because you'll deal with it when you're being honest, and open about it and accountable. You'll deal with it because you don't have to feel like you have to hide it or nobody's looking and you can ignore it.
Yeah, I just constantly think about veterans and, all the stuff that those guys come home with, and a lot of them don't know how to unpack it. And I think if, we had better programs for everybody to unpack the heavy weight of life, things might be different. And so my goal is to give support to anybody and let them know they're not alone, and then really focus on how to connect with people and try to give them a few tools to get back to even keel.
Yeah. So once again, I appreciate it. I know we're coming up on a deadline here, and I appreciate you joining me, spending some time with me, sharing your story. I do believe it's important. That's why I had you on. I look forward to hearing it again, actually, in Salt Lake City here in a couple weeks. So, of course, like you said, it's not a fence industry podcast, but hey, this is who we are. It's the industry that I do work in and you work in by coaching and consulting. And, I appreciate you joining me. Look forward to seeing you soon. What else you got going on in the burners in the future?
I appreciate that. Yeah, thanks, Zach. And honestly, I've really enjoyed the conversations we've had over the last month. So I really appreciate you. And
yeah, sure.
I'll see you in 2 weeks in Salt Lake.
Yep.